Hello designers, my name is Karthik from Design School for WordPress Beginners, the place where I teach you how to design, build and customize your websites. If you're new here, consider subscribing. I've already discussed each and every feature, almost each and every feature in CSSHero 3.4 in the previous video. I'll leave a link to that in the description. So this video is actually continuation of that video in which we discuss more advanced concepts such as code snippets, variables, theme dependency and a lot more. Together with this video and the previous video, you'll learn each and every feature in CSSHero version 3.4. There'll also be a playlist called CSSHero tutorials on the channel, so make sure you check that out from time to time. So that'll cover each and every concept and a lot of practical applications in CSSHero. Without any further ado, let's get into the video. So let's start with project variables. On the top of CSSHero editing screen, you have something called project variables. Well, what are these? These are common CSS properties or variable values that you can use in CSSHero. Let's see what it is. So for instance, if you want to define a font size such as a base font size for your theme, so you can define a variable. So you can say 16 pixels and you can save it as a variable. Well, why is this useful? So next time when you want to change the font size of an element, you can simply click on that, go to typography, and there's @ button or @ icon that you can click on, and that will give you all the variables that you've defined in CSSHero. So as you can see, I just added base theme and the value for that variable is 16 pixels. So when I pick this, you can see that the font size of the elements is changed to 16 pixels. Let's actually edit this. So I'll just click on this. I'll change 16 to 26 pixels. I'll save it again. And just like that, the font size is changed to 26 pixels. So variables, instead of typing repetitive values, you can simply use plain English. This can be anything. So this can be anything. It can be my variable, my font size. So you can also define it like this. And when I change the name of the variable, it's also changed where I used it. Let's add another variable. So another common use for these variables is color. So it's really hard to remember a hex code of a color. So if you have a complex hex code and you want to use it everywhere you want, you don't have to search for it. You can simply say theme color, theme_color, just give your hex code, or in my case, I'll just say tomato and I'll save it. Let me reset this property. As you can see, the variable is already shown in here. So let's actually pick this element and let's actually change the color. Again, wherever there's @ icon, just click on that, and there are two variables as you can see on my right panel, and the variable that I want is tomato color. So I don't have to just go in here and pick the color. I can simply click this and pick theme color, and it changes the value to whatever I defined in that variable. And what happens when you actually delete your variable for some reason? Don't worry, CSSHero is smart enough to actually replace the variable with the actual value when you actually remove that variable. So as my variable was tomato, when I deleted that, it will actually replace the variable with the value itself. And not just for repetitive values, variables are really powerful. So for instance, when you define a typographic scale, your headings will be actually multiples of some factor. So there are various typographic scales out there, and based on the scale, your H1, H2, H3, they'll be multiples of your base font size. So let's actually call this base size, base_size, and let's actually change it to 16 pixels. Now I want to set my heading font size to 1.5 times. So let's say my typographic scale increases in the ratios of 1.5. So I can simply add a variable. I can say theme H2 or let's start with h6 because that's the least of all the headings, and I don't even have to multiply the value. I can simply say @ use the variable because variable will be replaced with its value, and I can simply say times, which is the star dot 1.2, and just save that. So CSSHero will automatically calculate the value of theme h6 size. So let's actually do it. So this is the font size. Let's click on this. Let's go to typography. Let's actually change the font size to base size. So you can see that it's 16 pixels. So let's actually click on theme h6 size. You can see it's increased by this value. Let's actually define another variable, which is theme h5 size. We'll discuss about typographic scales in a later video, but just bear in mind that they're there, and typographic scales use a ratio such as golden ratio. So they actually multiply your base size with some value and then derive the pixel sizes. So just bear in mind, we'll discuss about that later. So now I can say theme h5 size as 1.2 times my theme h6 size. I can simply copy this. I'll use @ and 1.2. Let's save it. And similarly, you can build it all up to h1, theme h1 size. So you'll have a typographic scale, and next time you have an h1 heading, you can simply click on that and choose one of the variables. So let's actually click on this again. Go to typography, and under variables, let's click on that. Let's pick h5 size. Just like that, it increased in this ratio, and you can see the proportions by simply selecting the variables. This is also a neat little way to test your typographic scale, how your font size is progressing forward. So this is a really powerful feature, and variables can be used wherever there's @. You just pick @. Here are a few other facts about these CSSHero variables. Well, we've actually multiplied the size with this value. You can also do some standard math. So I'll say half size, and what I'll do is that I'll actually divide the base size with the value. So I'll just copy the variable name, its base size, and I'll say /2, or actually let's use the same ratio. So this will actually reduce the size by this factor. We actually multiply it, you can also divide. Even this works perfectly fine. So just click on save, and it saved my half size value. I don't have to mention the value, I don't have to calculate the value, I don't have to divide this by 1.2 and actually include the exact value there. CSSHero will calculate it for me. Again, I'll pick this, I'll click on @, I'll scroll all the way till I see half size, click on that, and just like that, it changed the font size to half the font size. So even / works. And here's another neat little feature. So as you know that theme h5 is actually a multiple of theme h6. So what happens when I choose the variable as h5? So the typography for this is h5. You can see clearly from here, theme h5 size. And what if I delete theme h5 variable itself? Let's see what happens. So it actually replaced theme h5 size with the actual value. So we said that theme h5 is theme h6 times 1.2. So it just remains the same. The size won't change. It will replace that variable with its value. So the value that I gave for that variable was theme h6 size times 1.2. So that's what it did. It won't break your website. So here are some fun little features about this variable in CSSHero. Use it whenever you want, and there are a lot more. And let's move on to the next feature in CSSHero 3.4. And You can also save any value as a variable. So for instance, if I picked this, you can also save it as a variable. So you can simply click on @ again and you can save it as a variable. So this current value will be saved as a variable. So the next feature is to reset edits. Well, there are various levels at which you can reset edits. For instance, if I changed the color of this element, so I'll just go here, I'll pick maybe this one, this color. So the color of this is changed in here. I'll actually pick this element. It's not clickable for some reason, so I'll just actually go and click this element. I'll change this color to something else, so maybe tomatoish type color. So we just changed two colors and all the changes are tracked in the code editor. Of course, it will show you the edits of the current element. So whatever properties you change, so the code of that will be shown in the code editor. If you want to see the whole code of the project, you can switch to inspector. So if I want to reset all the edits, I can simply click on cancel and all the edits will be gone. So whatever you made at this session, whatever edits you made in this session will be erased. But if you want to erase settings at individual level, so if you just want to erase typographic settings, you can reset the property that's always there, or you can click on the element. You can click on the element and there's a button called reset properties. Even this will do the same. So it'll reset all the properties only on this element and this element remains intact. Again, you can click this element and reset it as well. So it will give you something, so it will reset all the values. You can also click cancel to reset each and everything. And if you want to reset everything that you have made with CSSHero, you can simply click on this. This will erase each and every style that you've customized with CSSHero. So that's how you reset values. The next feature is snippets. What exactly are snippets? Well, snippets are similar to classes in CSS. So why do you even write a class in CSS? So that you can change the properties that you want all in within that particular class. That's why you use classes. It's snippets is similar to CSS classes. So if you're changing a lot of similar properties on a particular kind of element, you can save it as a snippet and then reuse it on a similar element. So I'll just click on this paragraph. I'll go to typography. I'll just change the color. So I'll just pick this color. I'll change the font to maybe this one. And let's actually change some other property. So let's actually add a border to text for some reason. Okay, so if you want to change all the edits, or if you want to change all this as a condensed snippet such that this can be applied to another similar element, you can do it. This is where snippets come in handy. So you just click on the element, you make all the changes that you need, and there is a button called make snippets. You just click on that, name your snippet. So I'll just say paragraph snippet and I'll say snippet. So now that we have our own snippet, we can apply it to another similar element. Here's another paragraph. You may ask me, when the context is set to default, why are these styles not applied to this element, this paragraph? Maybe because the class name of this paragraph element and the class name of this paragraph element is different. So I can simply hover over this and you can see it's a different element number here and it's a different element number here. So the class names are different, which is why the property was not targeted. This is where snippets come in handy. So I want to make all those changes on this paragraph as well. So I just click on that. Since we saved our snippets, I'll go to my snippet, and under my snippets, you have all your snippets. You can also preview the snippet before applying it. So all the changes will be shown on the right. Just click on apply, and just like that, all those changes will be applied. You can also modify the snippet from in here. So you can maybe add a background color, and when you modify the snippet, here it will be modified everywhere. So wherever you have used that snippet, so even here there's that modification, and even here there's that modification. Let's undo that. So you can modify the snippet wherever you want and it will be reflected everywhere. So you can go to snippets and modify the snippet. You can write code or simply pick the properties from in here. So if you change the code from red to blue, this paragraph, you can simply click on update snippet and it changes these properties everywhere you use the snippet. So again, this paragraph is also changed to blue, such as this paragraph. So that is snippets. That's how you add snippets. So you can also click here to add new. If you know CSS code, you can name your new snippet and write CSS code, but we won't do that. Or let's actually do it. I'll just say sample snippet. So I'll just say sample snippet. I want my color, which is font color, to be pink. I want font size to be 24 pixels. I'll just click on add. Just like that, under my snippets, I added a new snippet, and it will also give me the preview of the code that I've written. Even if you do it using the normal way, or even if you write code, it will give you a preview. So I can simply click on this, go to snippets again. I can remove this snippet so it looks normal. I can preview it with this snippet. Just like that, it will apply all the properties that I've defined. So I can simply click on apply, and again I can change whatever I want. Again, I can also edit the snippet. All these snippets, custom snippets, will be available under my snippets. So you can either write code or just change values and make a snippet out of it so that you can use it anywhere. Snippets are a really powerful feature. So I'll just click on this element and reset all its properties by clicking on this trash icon. So that will reset all the properties. That will actually remove the snippet. Again, this element is unchanged. It will just remove all the properties from this element. So it will actually remove the snippets from this element. So there's another way to add snippet. Simply right click on an element, and when you hover over it, it will show you all the available snippets that you can use for that particular element. So as you can see, there are two snippets, my sample element and my paragraph snippet. You can simply choose that and it will be applied just like that. Again, I can click it, remove this snippet. I'll click on the element, right click, normal. So under normal, whatever snippets I've defined for that particular kind of element. So this actually selected both the snippets. So you can see from here, so it will apply both the properties. You don't want to do this. So just pick one of the snippets, and just like that, those properties will be applied. Right click and apply the snippet from the ones that you have defined under snippets or you've made under the properties. So it's that simple. And as I told you, as you make changes, the code editor will actually reflect the changes. So when you change something, you can toggle the code editor and you can change or write code from here, which you won't do. But next to code editor, you have an preview icon. So what exactly does this show? This shows code of the element and container defined by whatever made this element. As this is actually built with Elementor, it will show me all the source code that's responsible for this particular element and the elements surrounding it, mostly containers. And this code can't be changed. If I click on backspace, it won't affect it. If I type some value, it won't be affected. It's just showing me the code of this element and the containers that are defined or shown here. So you can simply preview the code if you want to for inspirational purposes, but it's totally useless. So when you change the code of an element, the code of that particular element, all the changes will be reflected in the code editor, and I can simply switch to inspector to see all the edits that are made on all elements across the page. So let's actually click on this. We're in inspector mode, so let's switch back to CSSHero. Click on this, go to typography, change it to this color, and now let's switch to inspector. As you can see, it's showing all the code that I've made or changed across the whole page. So it will include all the code. I can simply start writing code from here or switch back to my CSSHero standard interface and start making snippets or do whatever I want to. Also, when you edit something, when you hover over it, clearly it will be shown here. So whatever kind of changes that you make to an element will be highlighted when you hover over that element. So you can see that this element is edited, so I can simply click on that and reset edits if I don't want, or I can simply click on hover over this and it's not edited, else it would have shown. I'll hover over this and it's showing that it's edited. So again, all the kinds of properties that we've included for this element will be shown. So normally or breakpoints, all that will be reflected in this. You can simply pick the element and then reset all the properties if I don't want to, just like that. Now let's discuss about the top selection bar. So we'll discuss each and everything about this selection bar, including the context refiner. I've already explained this in the previous video, but in this video I'll make it even clear so that you'll understand when and how to use it. Starting with this. So this is actually a name that CSSHero gets from the description of the element or the title of the element. So it's not a class name. This is a name understandable by the user. So you can click on the pencil icon. You can change the name to whatever you want. So you can simply change it to my section, anything. So you can literally change the description to anything and click on update. But don't change the element description to, or don't change the selector, because this will include changing the CSS code. So just you can change the description to whatever you want. So you can change the description to plain English. You can type anything in here and update it. This is just for identification purpose. So when you click on some element, you'll know that okay, you're clicking on my section or your element or description. So this is just for your reference. So when you click it, just change the description. Don't even try to change the selector, because that will alter the code and it will be a big mess. Again, I'll just click on cancel and that will erase all the changes that I've made till now. So the next thing here is that it shows that the element that I clicked occurs only once. So when you hover over an element, there is a number next to the element. So it shows how many times that particular element is present on the current page. So when I actually hover over this, it's showing that on this page I have 3 Astra containers. So if I click on Astra container and change the properties, it will be affected across all the containers when the context refiner is normal. So that's what it means. So it basically shows how much the element, how many times the element will be shown on the page, or how many times this particular class is present on the page. So you know how many times your code will be applied, which is why you have context definer. So no matter what you click, it will clearly show how many times that particular element occurs on the page. The next one in the top selection bar is this, the status. So what exactly is this? Well, this means that when you click on an element and pick the status, so only for links you'll have hover, active and visited, and for the rest of the elements you'll just have normal and hover. So what does that mean? It means that when you click on hover and change some properties, it means that all these changes will be applied, or all these changes will be reflected only when the user hovers over a particular element. So let me show that. So I'll just click on this. I'll just click on this paragraph. I'll change the status to hover and I'll say the typography color to red. Nothing happens now. Well, that's because I've set the context to hover. So only when the user hovers over this, I can see those changes. Sometimes you may not see the hover changes over here. You can view it on the front end. You can actually view the actual page by publishing it and view it. So let's actually change few more properties with hover context. So I'll try to increase my font size when user hovers over this, just like that. You can see that. So all the changes will be applied only when the user hovers over that. So I can simply click the context and I can remove all the properties of that element in the hover state. So now when I hover over this element, nothing happens. Again, this is common for all the elements except links. Links will have few other options. We'll come to that in a bit. Again, let's go ahead and let's actually change something else. So I'll click on this element. There's only one image on this. So we'll play with the hover state of this element. I'll choose hover, and when the user hovers over this element, I want to reduce the border radius. Actually want to increase the border radius so the image will be rounded. So this will add a neat little animation. You can see that. So when the user hovers over it, the border radius changes to rounded corners. That's what we've set in here. Let's change something else. Let's actually add a box shadow when the user hovers over this. So I'll pick a bluish box shadow. I'll choose. So let's actually see. You can see that it adds that neat little effect when the user hovers over this. You can view this clearly by publishing it and viewing out of on the front end, because it won't have all these CSSHero elements. Anyway, you can clearly see it. So you can make on hover changes to any element. Again, you can click on hover and remove all the properties of that particular state. So all the elements except links will have normal and hover. So when you change the properties in normal, you're basically changing the properties when the element is not hovered. And when you change the status to hover and change the properties, those will be applied only when user hovers on it. And again, hover is limited to desktop, so it's all up to you. If you're having a desktop oriented traffic website, well, you can change the hover states because that's what it's used for. And the next one, before talking about this, let's actually talk about links. So links will have different hover states. As you know, in CSS that you can style links based on these particular states. So when a link is visited, you can change its color. So when a link is active, you can change it to a different color. When a link is hovered over, you can change different properties, not just color. You can set it to hover and you can pick any properties from in here. So that's what it means. These kind of options are only available for links, such as this one. And as it's a button, again, you just have two options. Only for links, they have this. So when you click on a link, all the properties will be shown, and again, choose your context and edit the properties you want, and they'll be applied in this particular state. And you can also mix and match between the status and context definer. So if you set it to normal and you set this context, so you can use something like only on this element when it's hovered. So you can say only change the values on this element when it's hovered. So those particular changes will be applied only to this particular heading only when it's hovered. So let's actually increase or actually change the typography. Nothing happens now. And when you hover over it, the text color changes. And if you view any similar heading, it won't be affected. So the final feature is context definer. Of course, you can find how many elements or how many CSS classes of the similar type are there on the page just by hovering over the element, or just click on that and it will show the count in here. If there are more than one elements, then you might want to limit it to only this element if you want the style to that particular element, or if you want to apply it to all the elements on the page, you can change the context definer to that, or you can also limit it to the template. So when to use context definer and how to use it? It's normally safe to use only on this page by default. So when you're making, or when you actually click on an element, just change the context definer to only this page. if you want the changes only across this page. So when you design another similar page with similar elements, they won't be affected. If you change the context definer to normal, when you design another page with similar elements, even they will inherit all the properties that you define in here. So it's always safe to use only on this page if you want to limit the property edits to this particular page. So when to use the global option? So when to use the context definer normal? You can use normal context definer when you're actually making changes to your header, your footer, your sidebar, your social share links, or anything that you use commonly across your website. You can simply use the normal context. But if you're making edits specific to a page, just use this page. And if you want to target individual elements, just use only this element. So the last thing that I want to talk about is theme dependency. Well, how dependent is CSSHero on your themes, and why is that so, and what you can do to avoid this? So starting with how dependent is CSSHero on your theme. So I told you that my header, footer are designed with my Astra theme, and the page is built with Elementor. So technically, when I change my theme, the styles of CSSHero shouldn't be affected. Is that the case? Let's actually find out. So I'll make few changes. We'll change this heading to tomato or red color. We'll also try to change this. Also change this to tomato color just for a reference, so that we know our styles are overridden. So when I change this, all these are changed as well. So if you find this red color and the tickets red color, it means our CSSHero is actually taking charge. So let's actually save and publish. It's really great. So I'll actually go to my themes, appearance themes, and as you can see, my active theme was Astra. Now let's activate Divi theme. As you can see, my Divi theme is active now. I'll just go to my page. I already published this. Let's see how this would affect these changes. So let's actually refresh the page. As I changed my page, because of Divi theme settings, the layout has changed. I can fix that quite easily. But you can also see that we've set the tickets color to red and it's all changed. What exactly did happen? Let's actually click on inspector, and we don't see any code in here. We just changed the theme and everything is changed. Why is that so? So let's actually activate Astra theme again, and let's see what happens when we reactivate the theme that we designed our CSSHero things with. Again, I need to refresh this. As I reactivated my theme, the one with which I designed my CSSHero things, I get all my settings back. So I get all the CSS back from, I can see that from inspector, or if I don't want to, I can simply distinguish visually. You can see the red color in tickets. So it actually preserved the settings unless and until we had the same theme. When we switched themes, you either have to redesign or actually add all these properties again or change the settings again. So even though I designed this particular page with page builders with Elementor, even though this page is independent of my particular theme, when I changed my theme, these settings that were made with CSSHero were dependent on theme. Well, why is that? There is a perfect logical explanation for that. So as you can see, the header here has class called Astra container, and these links have a class called main navigation UL AI, and the button has main navigation UL AI button class. So let's actually switch to generate press. Let's reload this page once that generate press becomes active. So when I switched themes, now my generate press theme is active, and when I hover over each link, you saw that with Astra it was something called main navigation UL AI, and with generate press it's .grid container. So the class name changed here. So it was Astra container for Astra theme, it's grid container for generate press theme. Similarly, for other themes such as Divi, it will have a different class. But again, these elements are unchanged because this page was designed with Elementor, so they're independent of theme. And the footer container is called body footer. There it was called Astra footer or AST footer. So this is the reason why CSSHero is actually dependent on your theme. So since different themes have different classes and they've assumed that you design all your pages with your themes, so if you change your theme, these classes become different. So that's like adding a different CSS code, which is why they've decided to put whatever CSS that you've made with CSS into a theme dependent file. So whatever changes that you make with CSS will be uploaded in your theme folder. So when you change your theme, as the theme is changed, this theme won't have that particular file and it won't have those edits. Again, it will be preserved with your theme, so when you activate it, all those changes will still be there. Since different vendors have different names, they decided to make CSSHero theme dependent. If they didn't make it theme dependent, and if you change pages, all those changes won't be reflected in this theme anyway. So as this is generate press, all the containers and everything will be changed, so there is no point in actually putting CSSHero settings in a global area, which is why it's dependent on your theme, and that's the perfect logical explanation. Agree with them. And this is all you need to know about all the features in CSSHero version 3.4. and if there is any update, I'll let you know. I'll also make a lot of videos on that, but this is just the beginning. CSSHero is a really powerful tool and there are a ton of practical applications, and I'll talk about them on this channel. Again, there'll be a playlist called CSSHero tutorials. Make sure you check that out from time to time. Until next time, catch you. And that's it for now, and hope you guys liked this video. If you did, make sure you give a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. And if you need anything else, don't hesitate to ask. I'm ready to help you. Catch you in the next video. Peace.